Can everybody hear me? This is always a special day for us because a lot of work that's gone into what you see today, which is really a day about the family. So I want to thank all the families. If you're a family that's going to receive a house today or in the future, why don't you raise your hand so we can all acknowledge who you are. Let's give them a hand. They've all worked extremely hard to accomplish the goals of their sweat equity hours and to participate. Lastly, let me say this. You're going to be able to get a tour and go through the units and really see some amazing things. Keep in mind that these are people's homes. Do not use the restrooms.
It was 96 that the Camarillo home was done in partnership with Target.
Yeah, Ginny Sargent.
Yeah, Jenny
Very
was,
active
and
in that, yeah.
Ken Fiber.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like here that at that point we were talking about $30,000 a house. So that was back in '94. I'm Virgil Nelson, and so I was privileged to be one of the founding members of the Habitat community in Ventura County. We found Habitat as a model for affordable housing, and Habitat was formed under the umbrella of Project Understanding. Mission of Project Understanding was to identify needs in the community that are not being met and to bring the community together, building bridges and not walls. And we also formed Habitat as a separate nonprofit entity from Project Understanding. And so we immediately started searching for land, and we looked at everything. We talked to the city about property that they might donate. We talked to the county. We talked to the railroad that has lots of land adjacent to the tracks. We talked to Caltrans, all of these groups trying to find affordable property. The cheapest lot that was empty that we could find possibly to purchase was $80,000, far beyond our abilities.
You know, there was no land in Ventura County that we were going to get for a dollar a lot. In fact, even in those days, $100,000 was the going rate, even for a vacant lot.
Habitat for Humanity had a reputation, and we knew it could work. And we believed that over time, we too would get there. We were just working in a very challenging environment. And one wouldn't necessarily think so because we are so rich in resources here in Southern California. One might think it would be easy and easier than it would be in a community where you have a high poverty rate. That wasn't the way it worked for us.
If you have families who need homes but don't have land to build houses, then the mission of Habitat is a challenge, because how do you keep a board of directors and all of your volunteers excited about the work that Habitat does if there's no work to do? So we started the transition housing and the travel trailers, and we started doing rehab of homes with people who already owned them. In many cases, they inherited the house but couldn't afford to put a roof on it or to do major repairs. Millard Fuller, the founder of Habitat, came to Los Angeles for a conference. And since at the time we were the first Habitat in California and he was within driving distance, came up to Ventura County to visit us. And when he found out what we were doing with the travel trailers and the rehab process, he made a very clear, definitive statement that that's not Habitat. And you will, in fact, cease and desist both of these activities, or you can no longer use the Habitat name. So, fortunately, being under the umbrella of Project Understanding, we just changed the name of what we were doing and called it Project Understanding Outreach. And Habitat was now still looking for land. And the irony, to finish the story, about a year later, there was a huge hurricane in Florida, and Habitat came back to us and said, "You guys have been doing rehab. Would you be willing to share your legal documents and how you deal with the process so that we can apply this and use it in Florida?" And of course, we were happy to oblige. And it was, in fact, the rehab process that got us our first buildable lot. One of the men that we worked with was Charles Henderson in Oakview. And when we met him, he was subsisting in a shack, basically, that he had been able to construct. Found it hard to believe that he was able to do all of this work. This is one of the mud clay walls that he built, and you can see his attempts to create structural support by using cable and pipe. He finally gave that up and started with the brick. So from Habitat's point of view, he did not have a simple habitable house. And that's obviously Habitat's goal. So he subsisted in Oakview in two ways. He did handyman type work, and from selling vegetables that he grew on his property. This looked like a jungle with 7 temporary structures that Charles had attempted to build as a habitat for himself. He was a gardener. He sold vegetables in Oakview to purchase this property. And so he had tomatoes and lettuce and radishes and oranges and avocados growing on the property. And he pushed his wheelbarrow through town, selling those for $0.25, and that's how he was able to buy this parcel. So we were offered a dual-wide mobile home out of Ojai, and of course he's in Oakview and he's got the property, which he owns. And so with his permission, we moved the dual-wide mobile home onto the property and established it. And we'd been working with him for a couple of years at that point, helping him clean up his property and so forth. He said, "I want to give Habitat my property." It's like, whoa. By that time, we had had to do some research and negotiation with the county, we had learned that he actually had 3 buildable lots, not just one.
And that was a gift that one could never have envisioned happening. I think that contribution is one of those examples where someone who has few resources was exceptionally generous with what he had. He gave everything he had in the end to Habitat.
We were able to build that first house. That gave us credibility with the county, with the cities, and we were able then to get the land donations. And so that small beginning immediately, within a year, opened up an incredible number of doors. So Habitat was really growing exponentially. Ken Pyburn, he was an expert in helping organizations plan and vision for the future.
And I realized shortly after taking over the board that we needed to introduce what I would call more business principles for running the organization if we were going to grow. And we made quite a dent in Ventura. A benefactor out in Peru wanted to donate some land to the county, and this piece of property represented actually an entire neighborhood. But the problem was it had live orange trees on it. We didn't have the money to go hire somebody to clear, so if you can picture this, a bunch of homeless guys camping out in the woods of Peru with chainsaws chopping down an orange grove.
I do remember that. I want to say the Habitat team went out there and worked with the people who were on the property that had squatted there and asked them to help and take down the trees.
The property was kind of rectangular and it was east to west long, okay? Well, the natural drainage was north to south. So we needed to bring up the east end of the property. It's going to cost $200,000 for the dirt. We don't have $200,000. This is my responsibility. I haven't a clue how to get the dirt. It was an El Nino year. There was like 40 inches of rain, and all that dirt that washed down out of the mountains, the county had to pay to get that all emptied. And so the people who were bidding on it said, we hear that you need some dirt. We're going to come and finish this job for you at no cost to you. And I said, what can we do? They said, well, when we get done with this, we would like you to provide us a tri-tip dinner.
And they just had the entire company driving tractors and driving road graders and putting sewers in. It was really an amazing, and it really sort of made the affiliate. It made us, thank God for Eldon Sandy. How he managed it is beyond me.
This was a big deal for Peru. It was a big deal for us. We were building about 2 or 3 houses at a time, not all 22. They built eventually 22 homes there.
But that was also when I found we needed to contact the volunteers. So I started sending out an email midweek before the Saturday and reminding people to come and what they needed to bring, if they needed gloves and nails and hammers, whatever they needed to bring, or if they just needed to bring themselves and be prepared to work. That helped.
Well, that was clearly the breakthrough, because we could, first of all, we could stage it. You know, we could build. Well, we were building one at a time. We could be doing the foundation 2 houses down. The streets were already in. And I can still remember the faces on every house I dedicated.
I think that society in general benefits anytime you can uplift people from where they are now to where they can be and have a sense of security, pride. The Silva family, when I talked to the mom, to give me one word that would describe what Habitat meant to her, and she said, the one word would be hope, because without Habitat, we'd had none. And you know what happens when people have hope and they have confidence and they have security? They can see their dreams come true, right?
You know, all these houses that came were birthed by that first relationship with Charles.
So here's a guy living on $3,600 a year giving us 3 buildable lots, which were probably at the time worth, this would be 94, probably worth about $450,000. If you take that $3,600 and put it against the $450,000 value of the lot, you get a factor of 125. So let's take a person in today's culture that's earning, pick a figure, $150,000 a year, and you can calculate what that person would have to donate to Habitat to equal the percentages in Charles's case. You've got $18,750,000 a person would have to donate today to be the equivalent of Charles. From my perspective, Charles is probably the single biggest individual donor to Habitat in Habitat's history.
The man who had less than the least, I mean, he literally sold vegetables on the street and was trying to build his own place with his bare hands. And I mean, of course, and everybody knew him because they were buying vegetables from him. And when we built a home for him, it was like a Horatio Alger story with a slightly different twist, in that he gave the only thing he had to us, and then we built a house around him. You know, we built the entire reputation of the affiliate. It was marvelous.
It could have been just a cut and dried business deal, but Habitat's more than that. Habitat is kind of a lifelong commitment, and to honor Charles as best we could was very touching. It was great to be a part of it.
And Charles was the guy that helped ignite that vision and show us how to really build those kind of partnerships that have resulted in, Trinity Lane, Piru, Oxnard, Camarillo, Port Hueneme. It'd be hard for me to believe that he conceived that kind of trajectory of that initial gift. I just thought he, like a lot of people, hey man, this is something I can do. It can change the lives of people. It can help Habitat. I want this to be my legacy. And it'll always be his legacy because it was his gift that started that journey.
Thank you, council member. And before I turn it over to our newest city council member, Councilmember Connie Ty Gutierrez, I join my colleagues in saying welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Newman. I have to get used to that. It's like a nice ring. This is an article from the Ventura Star, and this was my family receiving our Habitat for Humanity home in the city of Thousand Oaks. On the campaign, I got to meet someone who helped build my home. And I was very young when the house was actually being built from its foundation till its completion. And I had never been able to really articulate how it changed. Ooh, I don't want to cry, excuse me. how it changed the trajectory of my life. Why are you on council? Like, what drives someone to like run for elected office? And I would say, well, when I was younger, I was unhoused, and Habitat for Humanity selected my family for a home in a city called Thousand Oaks, and that community built my home. As a child, I didn't realize all that was really happening around me or how my life could have gone and was being tilted towards. The lens of possibility really grew. We could shift our capacities from survival into something more fruitful. And a lot of that is just like understanding experiencing what the stability of having a home, a permanent home, feels like, I think is what drives a lot of that for each of us. And I was able to talk to my sister and say, I'm doing this. What could I say on your behalf? Like, what would you want me not to miss? And we're homeowners. And it was a very like tell them we're doing good. So, yeah, we're doing really well. And like, not in a boastful way, but in a way that like we're adults and we understand. We understand what it could have been. Every time that comes up, we understand the seed that Habitat for Humanity planted. I would go as far to say generationally that it has changed trajectories of our family. Mm-hmm.